Hey everyone, well, we are back here again, as you can see, and I do have another request here for some information on a video here, and I believe the last one I made was pretty long one. I think it's the longest one I ever did, about 50 minutes. This one will be considerably shorter. Yeah, people had asked me, especially in regards to soul connections, union of one, to do another video on care of the body. And I'm going to give that a whirl. And I'm going to assume here right off the bat that everybody is going to think that the thing that I'm going to be talking about here is food and food intake and quite possibly supplements, which I am going to do. However, I don't think that that's the most important thing at this particular point in time. I actually believe, based on the exposure that I've been having to a lot of people lately, and please understand, I get a lot of clients from everywhere in society, not just in the spiritual community. As a matter of fact, I get a small portion of people that get a hold of me through YouTube, of course, my Facebook group. But a lot of people tell me that they kind of bumble across me as that word goes out by coincidence and random chance, which we know is just not the case. Then we now do that by an energy frequency exchange, which sets up a sequence of circumstances to have people actually connect. And because they don't understand the mechanics of it, obviously, they call it coincidence or chance. But environment, it would appear, is becoming the big issue. And the biggest issue in the environmental situation is we have a lot of people living in very big cities, in very congested and very stressful situations that have to stay there out of necessity rather than choice. So environment is becoming the major issue, with a lot of people going through spiritual awakening and rebirth process at this particular point in time. And they've asked me if I can make some recommendations or suggestions that they can do. Yeah, I can. What you're going to have to try to do ultimately is devise a lifestyle or an environment to the best of your ability where you're treating yourself something along the likes of a Trappist monk. Some people are going to get a bang out of that one, I'm sure. But you're living in, for example, New York City, just as an example. So how are you going to do that? What you're going to have to do is to find somewhere in wherever you are that has the least amount of overstimulating, overwhelming surrounding vibration around you. What that means is if you live in an apartment building and you're feeling as though people's energies are crawling through the walls, then what you're probably going to need to do is find a different apartment building where people are going through similar situations as you are, and you won't find them crawling through the walls to get to you. Or in a lot of cases, what some people are doing is they're moving from more central part of the city to the outward part of it, or the outskirts of the city. Or in many cases, what I'm finding is they're actually moving into rural areas. A lot of people in the city have had enough of the city and they're moving into rural areas. The other things when it comes to environment is your working environment, which is probably the biggest issue of all. And I don't have that problem. because home is my working environment, and we selected the environment that we're in some years ago. We live in a small rural, I'm going to call it a village for lack of a better expression. It only has 1,100 people in it, and we don't even have a street light for traffic. So the environment is conducive to our well-being. We were fortunate enough to create that. And that's what I think. I'm not suggesting everybody needs to create a similar type of environment, but everybody's constitution is different. And you have to pick that based on your constitution as to what your constitution can handle, and then try to adapt to it, whatever it may be at. Now, the one thing with your constitution and what you can handle is it doesn't mean that you'll need to be moving every 6 months or every year or every 2 years. What it does mean is you need an environment that is conducive to the long term. So you kind of have to look at your environment as a situation where you need to consider or intuit where you are now and what you're feeling or what you're being impressed with or dumped on with, and anticipate where you might be 5 years from now in your own spiritual growth and evolution based on what you're going through now. And then adjust your living accommodations according to that. And your career choices at this particular point are going to be based on the fact that I've had a lot of people who are getting hold of me and say, well, I've had to make I'm going to use the term downsizing, if that's the right word, in regards to my career, because it was just like a high-stress job. I'm constantly being exposed to people who are in high-stress situations. And I've had to move to the side, if you will, or move in a different direction to get away from all of the influences of these type of people. In some cases, actually left their careers and picked a less stressful, a less monetary rewarding career for the sake of sanity and for clarity of their personal awakening, which I believe we're going to see more of. The alternative to this is, and I've actually seen this where I've had people get a hold of me who said they kind of knew there were things they needed to do. They knew that they needed to move from their career to something else, and they didn't do it. And when they ended up losing the career anyway in the long run, because circumstances, if you will, arranged it so they lost their job or their career or whatever, and they had to make a shift. So it doesn't necessarily have to go to that extreme if you kind of allow and be a realistic approach to your environment. All right. Now, I think that pretty much covers that part of it. The other part of it that is becoming a real issue for a lot of people is dietary intake. Now, here again, we're going to have to go by ages here. What I'm necessarily feeling and exposed to at this particular point in time at my age in food intake and supplements is much different than somebody who's going to be 30, 40, or even 50 or 60. The food intake and the supplementation for me is I based it on what my body wants and will assimilate as opposed to what I think I should be eating. And if I go by what I think I should be eating as opposed to what my body wants, we have two different menus altogether. So if I go by what my body wants, that would be basically a chicken, fish, a lot of fruits, vegetables, that kind of thing. If I were younger, say 20 years younger, I would have been moving in the direction of the diet that I'm talking about when it comes to food intake, and it would have been slowly going in that particular direction. The one thing that I've found is, and I'm sure there are people who will want to, disagree with me on this point, is I don't find that the food quality, even vegetables and even organic stuff, so-called organic stuff, has the quality that it had some years ago. And I personally don't believe when somebody says it's organic at all. I don't believe there's any place on the planet that's totally organic at this particular point. When somebody says that their soil has been certified organic and certified organic growing, all it means is there's just not any pesticides or fertilizer or chemicals in it. That's all it means. It doesn't mean the soil's any good. It just means there's nothing in it at that particular point. But again, that's just me. So for myself personally, I have found that supplementation has become a regime. Now, keep in mind, I'm 76, so therefore the body has reached a point where it's obviously slowing down. I don't have the stamina that I used to have. I don't have the endurance that I used to have, but I'm still functional. Everything works still, quite nicely, I might add. And the brain, the mind, the consciousness, and all of the organs of the body are still functioning with no problems. Well, a couple of minor ones. But this is all due to supplementation. And I'm not going to, sit here on this video and tell you all of the supplements that I'm taking, because I don't think I'm allowed to advertise for other companies. But I am going to give you some hints. I do take a product, that stimulates the pituitary gland to secrete growth hormones. And I have been taking that product faithfully for 10 years. And I can tell you it works. What it doesn't do is stop the aging process. What it does do is slow it down dramatically. When I compare myself to someone who is my age in general terms, we don't even look alike. We don't even act alike physically. And mentally and emotionally, I don't act anywhere like people in my age category. So that's one of the products that I'm using. I'm not going to give you the name, obviously, because I don't think I'm allowed to do that on YouTube, and I wouldn't do it anyway. The second thing that I do in regards to supplementation is I'm very big on amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of us, period. There's no other way around it. And people will tell you you can get a lot of this in different vegetables and different foods and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's cool. But like I said, when you go into the grocery store, all you see is vegetables and fruits that look good. That doesn't mean they have any quality to them. They just look good. Did you ever go into the vegetable section in a grocery store or even an organic market? Did you ever see any crooked carrots or a bent carrot? Did you ever see anything that have two carrots in one? Did you ever see any kind of malformed carrot? You don't, do you? All you get, especially in regards to carrots, and I happen to like carrots, is you get the perfectly straight ones. You don't get anything that doesn't look right. Because if it doesn't look right, consumers won't buy it. So therefore, they strive for look, and it's the same thing in a restaurant. When you go to a restaurant, it doesn't matter how the food tastes as long as the presentation is great. The more expensive the restaurant, the greater the presentation, and that's what you're paying for, as a general rule. I personally don't like to go to restaurants. I'd rather cook my own food because I know whose energy is going into it. So another little trick that we do is we don't eat out at all, hardly. We may go out once a year to a restaurant that we know, and it's a good one. We're fully aware of who the chef is and how the food is made and what goes into it. Otherwise, we wouldn't go there. Restaurant food in any kind is out because you have no control of what's going into it, period. So that's a very important feature. The other thing is consistency with your program that you set up in regards to supplementation. I also take in a lot of supplements from the rainforest, and I don't buy cheap junk. I buy the very best quality that I can find, and I do take the time to research any kind of supplementation that I put into the body. I also use a product on a daily basis, which is a combination of just about every vegetable product that you can possibly imagine, all combined into one. You throw it in a juicer and mix it up with water or juice, and you've got yourself a superfood. And I do that every day. I do not consume any type of junk or additives that goes in any type of food. I read the labels on boxes. I read the labels on everything. And I avoid foods in cans and boxes, if at all possible, wherever possible. And the other thing that I do, which I don't think a lot of other people do on a consistent basis, I drink a hell of a lot of water. I do not consume tap water. What I do is we have an extremely expensive filtration system, which consists of, and I'm not going to mention the name, 3 individual filters that filter out everything, even the chlorine out of the water. And we basically are drinking pure, clear, and clean water. And I drink a lot of water. As a matter of fact, I drink so much water, I'm usually up about twice a night or more going to the tinkle room. Because I even have water when I go to bed at night, as I wake up from some of my excursions into different timelines and dimensions, and I'm thirsty. And some of the places that I go are dusty. Okay? So, for me, it's a regime, and a regime takes time to set it up, and it takes time to understand what's going on in the body. The other thing that I have learned, and this has happened to me personally, and I'm sure other people know it, is many times you'll get a craving for something that you want that may seem out of context of to what is good for you. This is what I've learned. Because we are going through an acceleration in the Ascension process, which means that the molecular, the cellular, the blood, the cells and the molecules of the body are going through quantum changes. And just to say an ordinary diet with basically clean, either, vegetarian or vegan food or, half and half, whatever combination. To say that's enough, and this is just my opinion here, I'm not trying to create any controversies with anybody here, is this: there are certain times at certain stages where we may need a certain nutrient or supernutrient or amino acid or whatever. And perhaps we can only get that in a certain food, and that certain food may not be in what our traditional regime is. And I will break with tradition at that particular point, and I will go with it. Now, if it happens to be a chocolate bar or something of that nature, obviously I'm not going to answer to that. That's just simply a craving. There's a difference. Usually when I get a intuitive hunch about something that the body requires, something will come up in my thought pattern, my intuition. It may even come up again in the dream state. And it doesn't go away. It will stay there and keep coming up and keep coming up and keep coming up. And usually when that happens, that to me is the validation. I don't just jump on it right away. I wait until I get validation for it, and then I will follow through and I'll get a hold of it. And in some cases, it's been such a simple thing as just having a hamburger, believe it or not. Something odd like that. Usually not my diet. Or it might even be, some other food stuff I'm not traditionally interested in. The other day, it happened to be Polish cabbage rolls. And I found out I have a really keen taste for Polish cabbage rolls. And we got some. And they were yummy. And they just hit my button perfectly. For whatever was in it, my body assimilated it beautifully. And the reason that I know that is because something else has happened, is when I answered that intuitive insight, as it were, about what my body needs at any particular point in time, as soon as I put it in my mouth, it starts to get assimilated right in my mouth, even before any kind of digestive process takes place. It's starting to dissolve and be assimilated and turned into a liquid, almost like it's turned into a liquid light even before it hits the stomach. Kind of a weird thing, but that's where the body's at. The reason that I say this is because we're going through, like I said, the Ascension process. It's very important to understand that there's just an ordinary, everyday maintenance and eating the amount of food just to keep the body alive is not enough. That's not good enough. While we're going through the body changes, the last part of the Ascension process is the mind and the consciousness and the mental body and the emotional body are going to move up into higher vibration. The body's last. And the reason it's last is because it's our responsibility for care and maintenance of the physical body. Proper sleep is essential. And during the Ascension process, you may want to sleep more. You may even want to take naps during the day. Perfectly normal. Nothing wrong with that. I don't care if you're 25 or 30. And you want to nap in the afternoon, your environment should be set up to actually have that possibility if necessary. Which is why I like working from my own environment and home, because I can facilitate that. And again, sometimes what will happen is I will eat less for a few days, and then sometimes I will eat more for a few days. And sometimes I will just nibble and gobble throughout the day, like a pecking turkey, if you will. Old turkey pecking. A pecking old turkey. And that's what I will follow. And I've learned to do this, so I don't stick to any particular belief or regime. I follow my intuition, and I allow my body to tell me what it is that's essential for my growth. And I think a lot of people need to start learning how to do this, because it's very applicable at this particular point in time during the Ascension process. The other thing that I wanted to mention here, as I've constantly heard people say that they're doing things to decalcify the pituitary gland. Let me tell you something, and I want everybody to kind of pay attention. The very first time in a kundalini awakening that you feel the kundalini energy going up your spine, and if you feel it going up into your head, and it's going right into the center of your head, the kundalini energy, you don't need to do anything to decalcify the pineal gland or the pituitary gland. It's been done, baby. It's done, finito. Any exercise or meditation after that, or any substance to decalcify the pituitary or the pineal gland, is simply a waste of money and a waste of time and totally ridiculous. Kundalini will do that for you. Okay? All right. Now, the other thing that I do is meditate. One of the things that I've learned, this is very simple, you can put this all together in a program. One of the things that I find with a lot of spiritual people, they meditate, that's great news. But they're all over the place when they do it. And that's a mistake. You need to pick a time, the same time, every day, 7 days a week if you meditate every day, and you do it the same time every day. And people say, well, I can't do that. My schedule doesn't allow it. your schedule will allow it if you're working the schedule and the schedule's not working you. You know, people got this, you know, they're allowing, you know, the schedule or the life to run them, the circumstances around them to run their life, instead of changing it around and taking their life and running the circumstances themselves, instead of the circumstances running them. This is all part of the environment. You need to switch that around and change it. So meditation with consistency is an appointment. When you do it the same time every day, what happens is the emotional body, the mental body, the little boy, the little girl, whatever the case may be, come to look at that time, and also the body physical, comes to look at that time when you're going to be relaxed, you're going to be in a quiet state of mind, and then a lot of things can happen. Movement can take place, energy can recycle, emotions and feelings that need to be eliminated can be gone, and keep the meditation simple. Okay? One of the things that I've been noticing lately, especially in the spiritual community, meditation is becoming nothing more than an entertainment commodity. You can go up on YouTube and you can find thousands of people up there teaching different meditations with bells and whistles and chimes and waterfalls and birds and God knows what all. That's just entertainment. It's stimulating, but it's not effective. Meditation, simplicity. Going to the heart center chakra, focusing on the heart center chakra, breathing on the heart center chakra, simplicity. No music, no chimes, no incense. You and you. When meditation becomes entertainment, spiritual growth stops, and it's no different than sitting down and watching TV or going to a rock concert. You're looking for stimulation. To lose yourself in the stimulation so you don't have to do anything that really is important within you. How does that sound? I think I've covered enough of it to make a few people happy. And if you require, any further information or stuff like that, or meditation techniques, I have some wonderful inner child exercises and meditations that I can teach to people. And they're available on our website, twinflames.ca. Take a look. I'm here, and I'm helpful. Have a great day, everybody.